Hi, guys. Good morning. I hope everybody had a great Tuesday night. And Mike. Guess what day it is? It's hump day. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Hope everybody was Tuesday night was great, and y'all are ready to see what is going to take place today in the George Washington Wagner the Fourth trial. Sorry if I was a little discombobulated in the beginning. I was listening to the sound from my phone while talking at my computer, and it was messing up my brain a little bit. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't crackling because that's annoying. All right. So, who we got? Hey, Tony, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. If you haven't already, would you please give your girl a thumbs up on your way in? I'd appreciate it. Um, what am I doing? Oh, yes. I have to share the stream. Come on, Jen, get with it. Hey, Bethy Cakes, good morning. So, yesterday we had the medical examiner testify, and she had a lot of like good information to share. She really did. Um, and it got me thinking about like the timeline of the unalivings and just like this case was already one of those where you're like, that's messed up, right? But then, like, if you really think about it and you're paying attention, like, you start thinking about the timeline of what, where they, how long they were at each, probably possibly at each place, and that, hey, Charlie, good morning. Because I got a trial to cover. So I'm going live in the AMs. Oh boy. Yeah, so it's like they were at Chris Senior's home, likely, very likely, when Dana Roden passed to get to her house. You know what I mean? And it's just messed up. It's just really, I don't know, it just hit me last night when I was like looking through stuff, and because I couldn't remember what the exactly the prosecutor had said in her opening statements at about like because I know she talked about the phone call that Billy Wagner made to Chris Roden Sr.'s phone, right? And that's how they knew his time of death, and then and Gary's. But I had forgotten about the part where she talks about Dana Roden's last text and last social media post, and Hannah Roden's last text, and what time that was, and the Wagners were at the Roden's house, Chris Senior's house, like 10:30 at night. You know what I mean? And Dana Roden got off of work at 11. So, it's just messed up. The whole thing is messed up. And I just am having a hard time wrapping my brain around that this was all about custody, especially now. Do I think that custody was part of it? Absolutely, I do. But whenever I was listening to the medical examiner, and she only went through Chris Sr. and Gary Roden's autopsy, autopsies, I should say. And when she was talking about it and describing the injuries and the fact that Chris Sr. was shot 9 times, 6 of those times were in his face. That to me is personal. It just smacks of anger. And I just have a hard time believing that it was all it was only about the custody. I think custody was part of it, but I also think there was more to it. And I'm interested in that because obviously, but I'm curious if when Angela and Jake take the stand, if how much of Billy's part in the planning and hey, shift happens, what's up with your eyeballs? Oh, I got 2 sets of eyeballs today from shift. You're really watching me today, huh? Good to see you. It's been a while. Anyway, it got me to, wondering how much of Angela and Jake's testimony is going to be about Billy's part too, Billy Wagner, about what he did and his part in the planning of it. Also, with obviously they have to talk about George Wagner because he's on trial. This is his trial, but Billy Wagner isn't even his trial is not even scheduled yet. Hey, Corky. Hey, and 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's not even, his trial's coming up, but it's not like scheduled yet. He's had some preliminary hearings and stuff, but I'm just very, very curious. And then I was thinking too, when I was thinking about Angela and Jake Wagner and their testimony, I was remembering that the state had filed a motion and it was accepted. And so Angela and Jake's privileges have been revoked while they're um, waiting to take the stand. So they're like, wait, they don't get their privileges back until they testify. So now I'm kind of curious if that's going to play a role in whether or not they decide to opt out of having their testimony recorded in any capacity. Because they're going to, I feel like Angela and Jake are petty and probably would opt out just because they're having a tantrum. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious about that. I'm curious about all the stuff really. I'm concerned. Now, granted, we're not even halfway. So the trial's supposed to be somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, okay? And I would imagine the bulk of the 6 to 8 weeks is going to come from the prosecution, obviously, okay? Because it's their burden of proof. But we're not even we're not really halfway in. This is only the second week, and we're midway through the second week. So I'm kind of curious how they intend to put George Wagner the fourth at the crime scenes, because he says he wasn't there. So I'm curious.
In the case of State of Ohio Plaintiff versus George
Let me
Washington
do
Wagner
the closed
IV,
captioning for us
case
so they're
number
on good.
2018 CR 155. The defendant is present in court today with his attorneys, John Parker and Richard Nash. The State of Ohio is represented today by the prosecuting attorney, Rob Junk, by special prosecuting attorneys, Angela Canepa and Andrew Wilson, all of whom are present in the courtroom. Also present is Ryan Scheider, special agent with Ohio VCI&I. When we recessed yesterday afternoon, Agent Todd Fortner was on the witness stand. Let me ask counsel, is the state ready to proceed today, ready to have the jury brought up?
Yes,
Is the defense ready?
we are. Guys, we'd like to put one thing on the record.
All right, wait just a minute.
Yeah, we just want to note our continuing objection to photos of victims being projected. I think this witness is going to go into scene 2 today, which will be 2 additional victims. So we just want to note our continuing objection for the record.
All right, and the objection has to do with effect it would have on the jury? Is that?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Projecting,
Hey, Royal Wave.
on the large screen.
Welcome.
The photos of the victims. You know, Judge, the manner and cause of death is not in dispute here. You know, there are certain things in dispute, and then the manner and the cause of death of these were aggravated murders, those things are not in dispute. And to show repeated close-up photographs of the wounds or the victims, it's inflammatory, it's not necessary, those things are not in dispute. We object to those things being projected onto the large screen.
You don't have a problem with them, the photographs themselves, it's the projection of them?
That's correct.
You have to state.
Yes, Your Honor. Today's witness processed that scene. Part of his duties were to examine and document the body. In doing so, he took note of and collected various pieces of evidence associated with these bodies. His testimony today will be probative with respect to the location, position of those bodies, and the evidence that he collected, and projecting those images will be necessary to assist the jury in understanding the value of this.
All right, I'm going to open the defense objections to projecting these. I have been observing the jury, and none of them seem to be overly reactive to any of these photographs, and I do feel that they do assist the jury.
Hey,
in understanding
Lorianne,
the
you're
testimony
welcome.
we give. So I'll open
No
the
problem. Welcome to
defense
the
objection.
stream.
We can bring the jury up.
You just, it's not in, look, here's the deal. It's part of the evidence. And while I would imagine, to be perfectly fair, the people who are having the hardest time looking at those pictures are the family who is sitting in the front two rows. So for you to be up here saying it's inflammatory, good morning, Gail M. Well, good to see you. For you to say that it's inflammatory to the jury, no, it isn't. It's necessary for the jury to understand exactly what took place. And not only that, but they have to do it, the state has to present it in the manner in which they are, with the detail in which they are, so that the defense, it's very difficult for the defense to come then back and start cross-examination and then present their case in chief and say, well, you know, proper protocols weren't followed. We don't know if they were wearing gloves, yada, yada, yada. That's why. So they're hard pictures to look at. They are. It's upsetting. But it's unfortunately necessary. We wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for your client, sir. Allegedly, because he hasn't been convicted.
Y'all may be seated.
He literally said, y'all may be seated.
Good morning, ladies
Here
and
comes the
gentlemen of jury.
YouTube's
It's good
closed
to see all of you back
captioning.
here today.
Don't make me say it.
We are on another day of trial. You'll recall that when we recessed yesterday afternoon, Agent Todd Fortner was on the witness stand. And so let me ask the state of Ohio, are you ready to proceed to continue your direct examination of Agent Fortner?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
Yes, thank you.
Then we can have Agent Fortner step in. Terry? Before Agent Fortner begins his testimony, does anyone in the jury have anything you feel the court should know or anything to report to the court? All right, hearing nothing, then we'll proceed.
If you guys are just joining us, would you do me a favor and give me a thumbs up on the stream, please? It helps.
He's not working. All right, Agent Fortner, you are still under oath.
That's right. For the
No,
record, and for you, Agent Porter, I put back up before the jury what's been marked for identification purposes. State's Exhibit B 332. We need to make a record. So can you tell the jury, or can you tell the court reporter and the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B 332?
Yes, this is an aerial image of scene number 2 at 4199 Union Hill Road.
And when we had left off yesterday, basically, do you remember walking the jury through your documentation of the outside of that scene?
Yes.
Can I get State's Exhibit?
I'll tell y'all what we're
B
not
41,
seeing, that
please.
big old crack in the plaster.
I'm going to put up on
Happy to
the
report it
screen
looks
what's
like
been
it's
marked for
been
identification
repaired.
purposes. It's State's Exhibit B41. I'm also going to hand you another stack of pictures. The top picture will be State's Exhibit B41. B41 that you have in your hand, is that the same image? It's up on the screen.
Yes.
Now, if you could, walk the jury with a pointer. Show them where we were when we left off with the pictures. So you worked your way all the way around that property and point to where we basically left off.
It's, I believe we were back up to this corner, then we come all the way around the house.
When you got to that corner of the house, did you notice an item in the driveway area that kind of drew your attention that you thought you might want to collect?
Yes, there was a sweatshirt laying in the driveway.
And State Exhibit B41, can you tell the jury what's depicted in that picture?
Yes, that is that sweatshirt in the driveway.
At the time that you collected, or at the time you observed that sweatshirt, again, did you have any idea based on any of your conversations, any of the evidence at the scene, whether or not that was directly linked to the murders in this case?
No.
Did you collect it again out of abundance of caution and hoping to get evidence that may be linked to this case?
Yes, I did.
With respect to documenting and collecting that item, did you do it the same way you've already testified with respect to other items that you collected in this case?
Yes.
Walk us through how you took the pictures and how you would have marked and ultimately collected that piece of evidence.
So I would have taken medium range photos like this to establish where it is in relation to other items or objects. I would have taken close-up photos of the item. I would have given the item an item number with a placard, usually taken a picture of that, and then collected, sealed the item.
Mr. Junk, can I get State's Exhibit B178, please? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B178?
Yes, this is the sweatshirt marked as item number 2.
Does that picture there kind of give a little better orientation where it was at that scene?
Yes.
Like, can you point to the diagram and show us where in the scene that was?
Again, we're on this corner.
Can you give me the next picture, which is B179? Ultimately, did you give that a unique BCI item number and assign it a photo identification placard as well?
Yes, it was item number 2.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit B311. State's Exhibit B311.
At first I couldn't find the sweatshirt, but okay.
Packaging.
Yes, it's my evidence sticker with number 2, sweatshirt, gray collar,
Hey, Does Crime, good to see
collected
you,
from
babe.
4199 Union
Thanks for
Hill, and my
stopping
initials
in.
are on the side.
Did you ultimately collect, package, maintain, and store that?
So just real quick for everybody who's just joining us. Okay, so this is BCI Agent Fortner, and he is going to testify today about crime scene number 2, which is Frankie Roden and Hannah Gillies' house, right? I think that's right. I'll just make sure. Give me just a second, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
That item in accordance with your training and standard operating procedure there at BCI?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the parties would agree and enter into a stipulation that State's Exhibit B311 contains the sweatshirt, which was marked for identification purposes by BCI, is item number 2. That sweatshirt is contained as photographed in State Exhibit B179 with photo placard number 2. That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulation to be established as fact, as fully as if it had been established by evidence here in the courtroom.
Now, with respect to that sweatshirt, again, the time you collected it, any idea whether or not it was related to the homicides in this case?
I didn't know. It appeared that it had been there a while. There was some gravel on top of it, but
And at any point during this investigation, did you obtain information that led you to believe that it would have somehow been involved in this?
no, we did not.
Your Honor, at this time, the parties would enter into another stipulation.
All right, state it for us, please.
The parties would stipulate and agree that the sweatshirt marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit B311 was collected again by Agent Fortner, that item was not sent to the lab for any further DNA testing.
That's correct, Chair.
But again, the jury is instructed to accept the stipulation to be established as fact, as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Did you continue to document and observe items, vehicles, or other potential evidence in the area of the front corner of that trailer, that residence there?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B42, please? B42 is now up on the screen. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there and where in relation to the trailer at 4199 that picture was taken?
Yes, this is the black truck on the side of the trailer that we have previously seen the bed and the side of. This is just a photograph of the front of it.
And Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B43, please? And again, still working that same area of your documentation. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B43?
This is a photograph of the trailer at 4199 from that corner, just completing the trip around the.
Good morning,
residence.
KNS. Good to see you. Amelia
In addition to
Sparkles.
the
Good
trailer and
morning.
the area around the trailer, did you also document several vehicles that were in the driveway area of that residence?
Yes.
And if you could, show us on the overhead diagram or the overhead picture there where those vehicles were located.
It was the black truck, the red truck, and there was a blue car.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibits B44, B45, and B46. Can you take a look at those, please? Mr. John, just put State's Exhibit B44 up on the screen. Can you tell us what we're looking at there with respect to those exhibits?
That is the red truck that was in the driveway.
And did you document that truck or photograph that truck from basically all sides and angles?
Yes.
To depict the way that it appeared on that day?
Yes.
And is that represented there in the other pictures that you have that are not displayed on the screen at this time?
Yes.
And do those pictures truly and accurately depict the way that vehicle looked out of that scene on that day?
Yes, they did.
Now, just to provide a little bit of orientation with respect to how that truck was in the driveway and where it was, on State's Exhibit B44, could you see the deck for 4199 in that
Yes.
picture? All right. And if you could, actually, there's something else I want to point out. Take your pointer and show where on the diagram that picture was oriented.
So it's taken from this angle, from this side of the driveway, and you can see. The
Oh,
front
great.
portion
That's
of it.
wonderful news.
Does that picture actually capture
That's awesome, Amelia.
another overhead light on a pole there?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Can you tell, or I don't know if you can do it from there. You may be able to reach up over your shoulder there. Point out on State Exhibit B44 where that overhead light was.
This is the light that was on the pole in the front yard.
Straight you out. I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State Exhibits B47 through B51. State's Exhibits B47 through B51. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at in those pictures?
These are photographs of the blue car that was in front of the residence.
I had Mr. Junk post up on the TV screen, State's Exhibit B47. Again, can you tell the jury what is depicted in State's Exhibit B47?
Yes, this is the rear of that blue car that was in the front yard.
Now, with respect to that blue car, again, did you document all sides and angles of that vehicle as it
I bet,
appeared in that
Amelia.
location on that
I'm
day?
glad though. I'm
Yes,
glad
I
to
did.
hear that.
And those other exhibits, B48 through B51, that I'm not going to put up on the screen, again, do those truly and accurately depict the way that vehicle looked on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes.
To provide a little bit of orientation, can you tell us what we're looking at with respect to B47, how that car is angled, and what's caught in the background?
Yes, it was roughly in this location here. This photograph would be from this direction looking at the rear of it.
And that road there from that angle, does that head back down towards scene one?
Yes, you can actually see some of the vehicles, now buildings of scene one there.
In addition to documenting those vehicles in that front driveway area, did you also find or locate various cigarette butts in the front area of that location there at 4199 Union Hill Road?
Yes.
And if you could, use your pointer there, show the jury where you located various cigarette butts.
They were essentially in this area around the driveway, just off the porch.
Did you collect those butts as part of your work in this case?
Yes.
And walk us through how you would have gone about collecting those.
It would have been photographed similar to other items and collected and sealed in packaging.
Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit B52? My hand you another set of pictures. Can you look at those pictures and tell us, are the cigarette butts that you collected as part of your work in this case, are those depicted in those pictures?
Yes, they are.
In State's Exhibit B52 that's up on the screen, can you tell the jury what area that residence they're looking at and what you're trying to depict in that picture?
Yes, again, you can see one of the tires of the red truck, and there are cigarette butts in the gravel there.
And would you, again, part of zooming in, obviously this is a contextual picture, but as part of zooming in so that you can actually photograph or document how those butts actually looked on the ground that day.
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B53, please? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at in respect to State's Exhibit B53?
Yes, this is a closer picture of a couple of the cigarette butts located in the driveway.
Were there also some cigarette butts that you located near the front porch area?
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B54, please? Okay, and again, can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B54?
Yes, these are the steps of the front porch, and there are some cigarette butts on the ground near the steps.
Would you have taken individual pictures or close-up pictures of the cigarette butts that you collected in that area as part of your work in this case?
Probably not individual each cigarette butt, but yes, I would have taken close-up pictures to show the cigarette butts.
And did you, in fact, do that?
Yes.
And are those pictures depicted in State's Exhibits B55 through 57? I'm not necessarily going to show those, just
Yes.
look at those pictures that you have in front of you. And those exhibits, State's Exhibits B55 through B57, those truly and accurately depict the way those cigarette butts looked on that day that you collected them.
Yes.
Did you eventually mark and collect those cigarette butts?
I did.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B180? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there with respect to State's Exhibit B180?
These are the cigarette butts that I collected from that outside area as item number 3.
Did you put all those cigarette butts into one envelope or one packaging?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit B312. And I actually opened that before we came in here. Be careful, there's some loose items in there. I don't want you to spill them. Can you look in that pack? Well, first of all, do you recognize the markings on the front of that packaging?
Yes, it's labeled as my evidence number 3, cigarette butts from driveway with my initials on the seal.
Now, can you look into that open package and tell the jury what's inside that open package?
There are some loose cigarette butts as well as 3 other individual envelopes.
Okay. Can you pull those 3 individual envelopes out for us?
Yes.
Now, those individual envelopes, are those your envelopes? Did you do that or did somebody else do that?
I did not. This would have been done at the lab.
And do you recognize, well, are there markings on the outside or individual identification markings on the outside of each of those packets?
Yes, there are.
Can you tell us how those packets are marked?
They're marked with the lab number 16-15196 with the date of 4/29/16 and someone's initials on the seal.
Are there individual numbers on those packets?
Yes, there are.
Can you tell the jury what those numbers are?
I believe number 2, number 14, and number 15. Looks like.
And again, do you recognize that as work that potentially the lab would have done in this case on those butts that you collected on that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I believe we have another stipulation.
All right, can you state that for us?
Mr. Parker, this would be number 32, I believe, on your list. The parties would agree and stipulate that several cigarette butts were sent to the lab from State's Exhibit B312, which were cigarette butts that were located and collected at 4199 Union Hill Road. Those cigarette butts were identified by the lab as items 17A, or butt number 14, 17B, or butt number 15, and 17C, or butt number 2. The cigarette butt labeled as 17A, or also 14, had unknown female DNA on it. The cigarette butt labeled as 17B, or also number 15, had male DNA on it, and Frankie Roden could not be excluded as the contributor of that DNA. And then the cigarette butt labeled as 17C, or also number 2, had unknown male DNA on it.
Mr. Parker?
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept that stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the court.
In addition to those cigarette butts in the front porch area, did you examine other items of interest with respect to that front deck and the area right out front of that front deck?
Yes, in particular, there was an apparent blood stain on the wooden table in the front yard.
Can you give me, Mr. Jump, can you give me State's Exhibit B59? State's Exhibit B59, could you, again, show the jury on the big screen where that is, or not the big screen, on the big overhead aerial, where that is, and then tell us what we're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B59.
This was the table that was located in the yard here. You can see the apparent blood stain. It was tested and was positive for blood. Subsequently, this is where the deputy had told me the family brought the infant out and changed its diaper there.
And with respect to the size, location, nature of the blood on that wood table, did it look consistent with a bloody diaper having been changed in that area?
Yes.
Even though you had been told what had happened there, did you still swab that area for potential evidence?
Yes.
And walk us through how, when you do a swab to collect suspected blood.
Yes, I take, of course, with gloves on, 2 sterile swabs, hydrated with distilled water, swab the material, place them back in the package, and seal them in an envelope.
And eventually, is that stored, maintained, and kept in accordance with your standard operating procedures?
Yes,
And eventually, if requested, do those swabs make their way to the lab?
yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B60? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there with respect to State's Exhibit B60?
Yes, these are the blood stains on that table.
And eventually, did you mark those with a photo ID placard or some kind of marking system that allows you to identify it for BCI cataloging purposes?
Yes, this would have been marked as an area.
Okay, so tell us about that. You've given other items numbers. How do you mark an area?
And like I think I've explained, any tangible object that we're going to pick up and keep would get an item number. If there's an area of interest, such as a blood stain, we would give that a letter number or a letter placard to make it an area.
Okay. Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B181? State's Exhibit B181, can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Yes, this is a photograph of that area of blood on the wooden table in front of the residence, and it is marked with a placard as Area A.
And also, it's important for the state, especially with the fact that there was a lengthy period of time between the 911 call, the police arriving, the scenes being processed, and the bodies eventually, getting moved to and then taken to the morgue. As a, it's important for the state to establish what everything looked like at the time, in case the defense wants to later call into question, well, because of the way the scene was handled, it'd be very, the autopsies, you can't 100% say that this, there's wiggle room in the timeline, and therefore we're going to, squeeze George, having an alibi in there. So this is important. And I know it's I know it's upsetting and it's it's hard evidence to look at. It's difficult, but think about how the family feels. They're the ones looking at it. It's their loved ones up there. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just felt that running objection by the defense just went all over me this morning. All right, here we go.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit B327. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B327?
Yes, this is an envelope with my evidence sticker showing it's evidence number 18, containing 2 swabs of suspected blood from the wood table in Area A, collected from 4199 Union Hill, and my initials are on the seal.
And again, are those the swabs you collected as depicted in State's Exhibit B181?
Yes.
And did you maintain and store those in accordance with standard operating procedure?
Tony,
Yes.
it was incredibly tacky,
Your Honor,
I
we
thought.
have another stipulation.
State that for us, please.
The parties would agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit B327 was not sent to the lab for DNA testing.
Mr. Parker.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept that stipulation just given as established as fact, as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
In addition to collecting and documenting the evidence in the front yard area that you talked about, cigarette butt, sweatshirt, blood stain, did you also do some work in documenting evidence or documenting that front porch area that was just depicted?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you another stack of pictures. State's Exhibit B61. I'm actually going to take this. I'm going to put up, I've taken down State's Exhibit B332. I'm going to put up State's Exhibit B 334 for the jury. Can you look at State's Exhibit B 334? Can you tell the jury what that is?
This is a diagram, rough diagram, not to scale, of the residence, produced by Agent Durst subsequent to our investigation of the scene.
And with respect to these diagrams, you said that they're not to scale. Do you create these diagrams, or does BCI create these diagrams to give a general idea of where various pieces of evidence are found in a scene?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to that exact exhibit, do you see some of the exhibits or some of the pieces of evidence that you've already testified to?
Yes.
And can you walk us through just really quickly where those are?
Well, here's the front porch and the front door to the residence. Number 3 would have been the cigarette butts in this general area. Number 2 was where the gray sweatshirt was collected.
And then yesterday, did you testify to some of the pieces of evidence that were found in the back of that residence?
Yes.
And are those also depicted on that exhibit?
Yes.
Can you show us where those are?
4, 5, and 6 were the knife, sledgehammer, and pliers that were out back.
And again, on that document or on that exhibit, is there a guide or a ledger that links each one of those pieces up with what actually was found there with
Yes.
respect to a number?
Yes.
Okay. So walk us through your documentation of that front porch area. How did you go about doing it, and what were you trying to capture?
Similar to a room in a house, we would go photograph all areas of it, either corner to corner, side to side, or both, just to document everything that's there.
State's Exhibit B61, can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
It's a photograph of the porch from the stairs.
State's Exhibit B62.
Another photograph of the porch from that corner.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to examine the items that were in the corner of that porch?
We did.
Was there anything in that grouping of items that was of evidentiary value to you?
No.
State's Exhibit B65. Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
This is a photograph of those items from a different angle on the porch.
And again, didn't collect anything from that area. Is that correct?
Correct.
State's Exhibit B64. Can you tell us what area of the porch, and because it's not really clear, can you point on the diagram where we're looking at there?
Be in this area to the right of the front door, in this corner of the porch.
And what was in that area?
A few bags of things.
Did you have the opportunity to look at those items, check to see if there was anything in that area that was of evidentiary value to you?
Yes, I did.
And was there anything of evidentiary value to you?
No, there wasn't.
Can I get State's Exhibit B67? Can you tell us what that is?
Just a different angle of those same items in that corner.
And then State's Exhibit B66. What are we looking at there?
This is a photograph from the front door area looking back out toward the steps of the front porch.
And again, we see another bag there. It looks like some kind of animal carrier. Did you have the opportunity as part of your work to check those areas as well?
Yes.
Anything of evidentiary value in that area, in that bag that you collected?
No, there wasn't.
And State's Exhibit B63. Can you tell us what's depicted in State's Exhibit B63?
It's a photograph of the front porch toward the front door of the residence.
Is that how you found the front door when you arrived to do your diagramming or your documentation of this scene?
Yes.
Did you have the opportunity, after you documented how the porch was set up, check the porch for anything of evidentiary value? Did you have the opportunity to take a look at that door, examine that door, and document anything that might have interested you with respect to that door?
Yes, we did.
Can you walk the jury through how you did that and what you found?
Yes, we visually inspected the door. We did find what appeared to be a blood stain or a reddish brown stain on the door. the face of the door itself. We also swabbed the door handles for potential touch DNA. And then eventually we fingerprinted the door as well.
And tell the jury what touch DNA is.
Touch DNA is anytime we touch anything, we are constantly sloughing off skin cells. And so there's a chance if you touch something, you'll leave some of those skin cells. Those are nucleated cells which have DNA in them. So just by touching something, you could leave your DNA.
And if I have gloves on and I touch the door, gloves on, and I go into a scene, again, could those gloves inhibit or prevent my DNA from sloughing off and getting on anything I touch?
Yes.
May I hand you another stack of pictures? You could look through those. Do those pictures depict the work that you did around that front door on April 22nd,
Hey,
2016?
Nonstop
Yes.
Mom. Good morning. Good to
Mr. Junk,
see
can you give
you.
us State's Exhibit B68, please?
Anything good? Twitter on the
State's Exhibit
Twitters?
B68, could you tell us what's depicted in State's Exhibit B68?
This is a photograph of that front door from the outside.
Mr. Junk, can you go to
You
State's
know what I'm
Exhibit
curious
B69?
about is I think we can all pretty much assume because there wasn't any
Okay, can you tell
like,
us what we're
you
looking
know,
at with respect to State's Exhibit
like
B69?
fingerprints or touch
This is a
DNA.
photograph of
that
the lower half of the exterior of that
Wagner
front
family
door
wore
showing the reddish
gloves.
brown
But what
stains.
I'm curious about
And again,
is
Do you take a picture like
did
this
they
to
wear,
provide
like-
context so you can overall see where those things are?
did
on
they
the
wear
door?
like
That's correct. And
disposable
eventually,
gloves
do you go
or
up and take closer
other
pictures,
some
so you can
not
document
disposable gloves,
how
and
those
if
things
they
look
have
actually on the door?
any
Yes.
evidence
Mr. Junk, can
of
you give me
the
State's Exhibit
purchase of those gloves?
B70, please?
That's what I'm curious about. Of course, it is
You tell
Ohio,
the jury
so
what they're
people probably
looking at
do
there.
have
This is
gloves
a
because
close-up
obviously it
photo
gets cold
of
in the
those
winter
reddish
time and
brown
maybe they
stains.
just destroyed them. I'm just curious.
And if you could, with respect to stains like that, droplet type stains, can you walk us through how you document those stains, how you mark them for the purposes of documenting with the camera?
Similar to the blood on the wooden table up front, we would give this an area. I believe this was area B. We would then put a scale up as well with these blood stains, take a photograph of that, and then collect the blood.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B190, please?
Do you think that the prosecutor heard me say repeatedly how he doesn't say please
Can you tell us what's
to
depicted in
Mr.
State's
Junk
Exhibit
and
B190?
Junk?
Yes,
and
this is a,
now he's saying please.
those reddish brown stains with a scale up, and it's marked as B.
I'm glad you
And
remembered your
then State's
manners
Exhibit
today, sir.
B191.
Manners is important.
Can you tell us what we're looking at there with
This-
State's Exhibit B191?
Yes, this is a close-up photo of those stains.
Now, eventually, walk us through, you talked about presumptive blood testing.
Yes.
Walk the jury through how you test a stain like that for the presumptive presence of blood and what that means.
We use a chemical called tetramethylbenzidine, which we shorten to TMB. It is a chemical that reacts with the hemoglobin in blood to, it's a color change test. So if we swab a part of the material,
Who's
put
warring
the
on the
chemicals on the
Twitters
swab,
nonstop, Mom?
the swab turns blue, it's positive, presumptively positive for blood.
And later on, can other tests be done by the DNA lab or by your, I guess it's your forensic biology lab, to determine whether or not that actually is blood or do a confirmatory test?
Yes, they would do another test to confirm that was indeed blood.
And again, is that typically done with respect to the DNA testing in a case?
Yes.
And did you take swabs of that, testing it for presumptive presence of blood?
I did.
And can you tell us what the results were?
It was positive.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit B325. State's Exhibit B325, do you recognize the markings on that packaging?
Yes, it's my evidence sticker with the number 16, 2 swabs of suspected blood from the front door exterior, area B, collected from 4199 Union Hill Road with my initials on the seal.
And are there also markings on that document that show that it went to the lab?
Yes.
I believe we have another stipulation.
All right, please state it for us.
Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation number 34. The swabs is identified, the parties agree and stipulate that the swabs identified as States Exhibit 325, which are BCI item number 16, from the area marked or noted as B on the door at 4199 Union Hill Road, were submitted to the lab for further testing. The testing in the lab was inconclusive as to whether or not the swabs contained blood. There was insufficient DNA on the swabs for the purposes of DNA comparison.
Mr. Parker.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulation just given to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence in the courtroom.
I wonder if they had access to MVAC at
In
the state
addition
crime lab,
to
if
collecting swabs
there would have been
from that
different- if the
spot, did
results
you
would have been different.
continue to examine that door to check it for any damage?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can you give me States Exhibit B71, please? And can you tell the jury what we're looking at there with respect to States Exhibit B71?
Yes, this is the door jamb of that front door, showing both the strike plate for the lock and the deadbolt, as well as a chain lock at the top.
And with respect to that area, was that the condition you found that to be in on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can you give me B72, just the next picture?
And if I remember correctly,
States
Jake
Exhibit
Wagner testified
B72,
that
can you
he entered Frankie
tell us
and
what's
Hannah's
depicted
home
in
through an
that
open
picture?
window.
This is a close-up photograph of that chain from the lock. Chain lock does not appear to be damaged in any way.
States Exhibit B73. Can you tell us what that is?
We're looking at those strike plates for the door handle, lock, and the deadbolt. Again, no signs of damage or forced entry.
And then B74.
I'm more of a Twitter
Can
reader.
you tell us what we're looking at
than a
there in States
tweeter.
Exhibit B74?
I don't actually
This
tweet.
is a photograph
very
of the
much,
edge of the door showing
but I do
the
read
lock
it.
and the deadbolt in the frame of the door itself with no apparent damage or signs of forced entry.
As part of your work in this case, in addition to examining those areas for the presence or absence of damage, did you also do blind swabs of both the interior and exterior door handle?
Yes.
Back in the day,
Walk the
I
jury
used
through how you
to
did those blind swabs.
Again, we would take
follow a
when we
lot
take
of the
blind
Real
swabs, we
Housewives,
use one
and they would,
sterile swab,
especially
hydrated
when they
with
would
distilled
beef on
water,
Twitter.
and swab the area where we suspect there could be DNA, and place it in the package, seal it in an envelope similar to if we have known material like blood.
My handy what's been marked for identification purposes, States Exhibit B323. States Exhibit B323. Do you recognize the markings on that packaging?
Yes, it's my evidence sticker with number 14 containing one blind swab from the front door exterior handle, collected from 4199 Union Hill Road with my initials on the seal.
Do you recognize that as the swab that you would have taken of that door handle on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes,
Do you also recognize markings that show that that went to the lab?
yes, I do.
Your Honor, I believe we have another stipulation.
All right, state the stipulation for the jury, please.
The parties agree and stipulate that States Exhibit 323, which is BCI item number 14, swabbing from the front door of 4199 Union Hill Road, was sent to the lab for DNA testing. The DNA recovered from this swab was a mixture of DNA that was not sufficient for inclusion or comparison purposes.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulation just given as established as fact or to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Mr. John, can you give me State's Exhibit B75, please? Just next picture. Did you also swab the inside of that door handle?
Yes.
In my handy, what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit B324. State's Exhibit B324. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes. Evidence number 15 containing one blind swab from the front door interior handle from 4199 Union Hill Road with my initials on the seal.
Do you recognize that as the swab of the area that is depicted in State's Exhibit B75?
Yes.
Do you also recognize markings that show that it went to the lab as well?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, we have another stipulation.
State that for the jury, please.
The parties would agree and stipulate that the blind swab identified as State's Exhibit.
Whenever I hear the
324
testimony
BCI
like this,
item
I
number
always
15
think about
from the front door
if
of 4199
crime scene techs
Union
came
Hill
into
Road
my house
was
and just
submitted to
started
the lab for
randomly
DNA
swabbing
testing.
stuff,
The
what they would
DNA
find as
contained in
far
the
as
swab was
DNA and because
insufficient
I
for
just am
comparison
curious about
purposes.
that because yes, we all do slough skin cells, but some of us slough more
The
than
jury is
others.
instructed
So
to
I'm kind of
accept
curious
stipulation
about
just
that. Like,
given
what kind of
to
slougher
be
am I?
established this fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B76, which is just next one? Can you tell the jury, Agent Fortner, what's depicted in State's Exhibit B76?
There's a photograph of that chain lock on the door.
And again, with respect to the door side of the chain lock, did you see any damage or any evidence of force in that area?
No, there's no evidence of damage or force entry.
In addition to swabbing that door and visually inspecting it for damage, did you try to fingerprint that?
I'm just always
Yes, we do.
curious about stuff
Walk
like
us
that.
through how you do a fingerprint.
Basically, you take a fingerprint powder. We dump it into a paper bag to keep it sterile, so we're not adding things back to the powder. Take a brush, lightly brush the area. If you see a print start to develop, you develop that area more. Photograph it and then lift it with tape.
And what is a fingerprint and how do people leave fingerprints? Do you know that?
So in our skin, we have sebaceous glands, which secrete oils. Those oils, then once you touch something, are left there. The water in that evaporates, but the oils stay behind and the powder adheres to those oils.
If, again, I'm wearing gloves, would that interrupt the transfer of my oils or my fingerprints to a surface that I touch?
Yes, it would.
Okay, and would that make it impossible, if not extremely difficult, to get a fingerprint?
Yes.
And when you did the fingerprint testing or inspected or dusted that area there for fingerprints, were you able to find any usable fingerprints?
We did not locate any, no.
Once you worked that door and did the work on that door, did you begin to conduct an examination of the interior of 4199 Union Hill Road?
Yes.
And if you could just generally give us a general overview of how you
I'm not
did your
either,
documentation
And 5,
of
6,
the
7,
inside
8.
of that
This is why I'm
residence.
getting concerned.
Again, we
but
take overall photographs of the entire residence.
truly, we are
When we
barely
go to a
into
room,
this
we
as
do
far
either
as the
corner to
trial
corner
goes, although
photographs
I
or
feel
wall
like
to
it feels
wall.
like we've heard a lot.
Go all the way
This is
around the
just
room,
the-
make sure we get
Just the tip
everything
of the
included.
iceberg. I
We will
think.
then work our way to the next room and document everything before we put any placards down or collect.
But I will say, one
And
thing
again,
that I do find interesting
In an
about
effort
this
to
case,
prevent contaminating a scene,
particularly
your
with
DNA
the
into a
processing of
scene
the crime
or
scenes and then
causing
sending
issues in the scene. Number one,
various
be
things
careful
off
with how
to
you
the
work
lab,
your way
that
around and document
there's
scene.
not a
Yes.
hair.
And number two,
I get,
do you
okay, there's probably not
typically
going to
wear
be
protective
any
clothing
blood
with
or
respect to
fingerprint
high-vet suits,
evidence
booties,
because
that
they
kind of
wore
stuff?
gloves, yada, 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 but
Not every
not
time,
even
but
a
we
hair,
do use
nothing.
personal protection. We always wear gloves, often wear booties, and occasionally wear a tie back.
Okay. And again, a lot of that's scene dependent. Is that correct?
Correct.
When you walked into that area where you began your examination of 4199 Union Hill, describe to the jury what you were seeing. What was the lighting conditions? What was the general layout? Walk them through your observations.
So when we entered the living room, we noticed there were no overhead lights on. The only light we saw was a
And the state
night light
has
plugged into the wall and the light over the oven.
photographs
The
of Jake
television was on
Wagner
to children's
with,
programming.
like that he
Cartoons, I
posted to
believe, at
Facebook,
the
I
time.
believe it was.
If you could, walk us through it.
And
Use your
he's
pointer.
holding
Show the jury
one of
where
the guns
was
that
the
was
TV in that room.
determined to have been
So as
used
you come
in the
front door,
crime.
the TV was along
So,
this wall.
That's
the oven with
compelling.
the
I'm
light
curious
and
if they
the,
have anything like that
night
from
light
George,
kitchen.
because
Was it fairly difficult to
It's-
see in that area?
Yes, it was somewhat dark.
I don't know. I'm worried.
Did you find the inside of that area to be fairly cluttered?
Yes.
Okay, and describe that.
There were clothes on the floor. There were other items. There was even trash and food items that were around. It was pretty cluttered. It's heavier in some spots than others, but it was pretty cluttered.
And as part of your work in doing your initial observations, did you actually take pictures and document the condition of that front room?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit B77? All right, we're going to do kind of the same thing with this diagram that we did with the outdoor diagram. When I ask you about these pictures, I want you to kind of show us where you were in the residence and which direction that picture is indicated. So with respect to State's Exhibit B77, walk us through that. Where are you taking this picture from? What area of the residence are you depicting? And tell us generally what you're observing when you take this picture.
This is a photograph from basically standing just inside the front door, looking towards the kitchen and living room area.
And with respect to that couch that's depicted in the picture, again,
Yes, it would be right there inside the front.
and that was fairly close to that front door, correct?
Yes.
Not
Give me State's
100%
Exhibit
sure why we can't
B78.
see these photographs.
Actually, you know what? Can you back me up? Back me back up there. As we look down in that picture there, B77, from that front door area, again, was there a general path that you could walk from the living room to the kitchen to that back door?
Yes.
Is that depicted in that picture there as well?
Yes.
Can you point to the picture at least and kind of show?
Yes. Walk right through there.
Yeah,
And again-
Becky Cakes, I think
Eventually, as part of your work in this case, did you walk through that area?
Yes.
Did you have any problem at all moving or maneuvering through that area?
No.
Now, can you give me State's Exhibit B78?
there must be a reason. This is the
Can you
He's
tell us,
asked this
using the
before.
diagram, where is that picture taken from, what you depicted?
From the same area. the
He's
front door,
asked
and then
this
we went
witness
right into just the living
the
room,
same
television.
question before with
And
respect
the
to
programming that's on that
um,
TV that's captured in that picture, is that truly an accurate
crime scene number one, which was Chris Senior's home.
Yes.
You didn't.
And,
change the channel. You don't
there
change
must
it
be a
too
reason.
much.
Maybe they did the whole murder by numbers deal. I don't know.
Can I get State's Exhibit B81, please?
I suppose if there was an ambush, though, you wouldn't
Again,
really.
tell us where that picture's taken from, and then use the diagram to show us what area of the room that's depicted.
I would have.
It's from this vantage point looking back.
Here's why. This is where I would have
toward the TV in
expected
the
to
living
see
room.
some
Are you just
something
working that
would
pan-
be in
panning
Chris
around that room
Senior's
with these
home
pictures?
because they had to move
State's Exhibit B79?
bodies. So that in and of itself, jostles things around,
we
as
at
it
there?
were, on
This is
the
up here kinda
perpetrator's
looking
body,
straight
hair,
in the living room down this
sweat,
wall.
all kinds of stuff, So I'm just, it's
And
interesting
Stacy's
that
exhibit
nothing was
B83.
found. Because, like when they went at
And where are we
the
looking at?
subsequent
And
homes was just,
This is from this vantage point beside the TV looking towards this wall.
aside from moving both of the Hannahs,
In that, from that picture
after the
there,
fact,
again, even though you're
just
focusing on that,
adjusting them in their beds,
what I
they
would call the
didn't
right wall, when you walk in the door,
really
the right wall, that
touch
living room.
anyone else.
Can you see in that picture, that hallway that works its way back to those back bedrooms?
Yes.
I
And
feel
again,
so
same type
grimy
of
even saying
question
that.
with respect to, I walked you from the front door area through the living room into the kitchen to the back door. You said there was a clear path that you could walk through there. From that picture that you're taking back towards this, what I'll call the right wall, again, into that hallway and into that back bedroom where ultimately the bodies were found, again, was that a fairly clear path that you could move through?
Yes, there were some items on the floor, but it was clear enough to walk through.
And again, you didn't have any problem yourself moving or maneuvering back through there.
Correct.
Can I get State's Exhibit B82?
I mean, Jake was a fairly thin guy. Billy and George.
If you could, show
Not
us
so
where we're
much.
at in
So
that
maybe
room
that's
and
why
what's
he's
depicted
asking?
in that picture. Actually, you know what, let me, hold on one second. Yeah, B82, go ahead.
It's in this area, just looking straight down this kitchen counter area. You see the TV and some of the cabinets.
Can I get B84?
But now what's interesting is how
Where are
did
we
they
at in that area?
exit?
We're in this
The
corner,
home,
looking back
like-
toward this corner. You can see the front door and the couch.
So Jake says he went in through
B80?
an open window. Okay. Did he exit through the open window? Did everybody enter through the open
are
window, meaning
now
Billy
In
and
this corner,
George?
looking back towards this way.
Because the chain was on the
86.
door at that house. Remember, their son had to, well, it's
This is a photograph
biologically,
of the rug in
the
the living
son
room, the
only
center of the living
belongs
room.
to Frankie, but
And with respect to
would have been Hannah's
the items on
stepson.
the.
He's the one that unlocked the door.
That red item, is that, what is it? Is that a pillow?
It appears to
I
be
mean,
a
it was
pillow,
locked from
yes.
the inside. So that's, I'm
That truly
curious
accurately
about
depict
that.
the way that area worked or looked on that day.
Yes.
And then finally B85.
Because we've heard different variations of the story from
This
Jake.
is a photograph
One
from
confession,
in the living
he
room,
claimed,
looking
he
towards the
said that
couch
he
and those chairs
unalived
there.
everybody, all 8 people. So
At some
And
point,
now it's,
again, you did for us, you just
For
went through
sure.
a basic panoramic of this entire living room.
He's-
At some point, did
his
you
story
move
has changed
from your
to
documentation of
this
that
much
living
we
room
know
into
that
kitchen
Chris
area?
Sr.
Yes.
unalived. I mean, Billy Wagner unalived Chris Sr.
Hands you another stack of pictures, and I believe, was it B88 the first one?
Yes.
B88 is the first one on that stack.
Only way I can see it
Be
working if
88.
all 3 of them entered the
84, could you
Frankie and Hannah's
do the
house.
same thing. Tell us
would
where that
be
picture's taken
If
from
Jake
and what
went in
it's
through a
depicting.
window and went to the front door and locked it, let
This
them out the
is
front door and
basically
locked it back
from
and then
the
exited the
entryway
window.
from the living room
But he
here.
came in. Does that make
looking
sense?
Straight down toward the table and refrigerator.
Because I saw a picture of that window
B89, next
yesterday,
picture.
and I don't think George and Billy were climbing, hey, cement shoes.
This is a photograph
windows.
taken from this location showing the kitchen counter there.
Okay. You testified that some of the areas of the house had more clutter than others. Did that kitchen
Yes.
counter area seem to have a little more clutter? The kitchen area have more clutter than?
Yes, there was more clutter on that counter. In this photograph, you also see the oven light and the night light that were the only 2 sources of light that were on at the time.
And again, as you document them there, did you have to turn them back on, or did you turn them off, turn them on? That's the way you found them when you went in there, is that correct?
Yes, I photographed it in the condition I found.
Can I get B90, please? Can you tell us what we're looking at there with respect to State's Exhibit B90?
Yes, this is a photograph from this location looking into the kitchen.
And State's Exhibit B91? Where are we at there?
We are on the other side of the table, so we're looking back toward the refrigerator, and there's a freezer there.
B92?
This is in front of that area, so it would be down here. Again, this is not the scale. But there's a bag from Rural King with items in it.
Okay, let's talk about that. With respect to some of these bags and some of this cluttered area, was there anything of evidentiary value? Well, let's talk about the living room, first of all. You went through the entire living room.
Mhm.
Was there anything of evidentiary value in the living room that you collected?
No,
And with respect to the bags and the cluttered area that you talked about with respect to the counters, was there anything of evidentiary value in those areas that you collected?
no.
Can you give me B93? Can you tell us what we're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B93?
This is in the kitchen, looking toward the rear door.
And is that the same door that you testified that you examined from the backside?
Yes,
And does that door, again, yesterday you testified, does that door swing outwards away from the items depicted in that picture?
yes. It opens to the outside.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B99? Can you tell us what's depicted there in State's Exhibit B99?
A photograph of that back door, the interior.
And with respect to the deadbolt lock on that door, is that picture depicted the way that that deadbolt lock appeared on the day that you examined it?
Yes,
And do you know, was there later work done or documentation done later on to look at that deadbolt and determine in what position it's locked or unlocked?
yes. I believe it was verified that the deadbolt in that position would be unlocked.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B100? Okay. Again, can you tell us what that is?
This is a close-up photograph of the door lock and deadbolt. There's no apparent visual sign of the deadbolt being locked.
And again, it's your understanding that later on, more documentation of the lock in that position was done. Is that correct?
Correct. And the lock on the door handle appears to be in a vertical orientation.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B94, please? Can you tell us again what area we're looking at there with respect to that picture?
Again, we're in the kitchen. The stove is in this location.
With respect to that light, our oven light being on, is that depicted in that picture as well?
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B96, please? Tell us where we're looking in that picture and what's depicted.
This is from the kitchen looking back out over that counter into the living room.
And then State's Exhibit B97. What are we looking at there?
This is a photograph of this table in the kitchen.
State's Exhibit B98. Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
Yeah, this is a photograph of a bag of trash that was opened and searched there.
Now, eventually, after you had documented everything, preserved the way it looked,
Good morning,
as you
everyone. Just
initially
joining
entered
us.
that area, did you do more work in that kitchen area with respect to the floor?
If you wouldn't mind
Yes.
giving your girl a
Walk
thumbs
us
up on
through,
your way in, I'd
what you did
appreciate
with
it.
respect to that kitchen floor.
We checked the floor for potential shoe prints, footwear prints. The way we do that is we use just fingerprint powder. The soles of your shoes, generally as you walk outside, pick up oils from asphalt or from other things that can then be deposited on the floor like this, and it would adhere to the fingerprint powder.
And before you put the fingerprint powder down, do you first visually look at that area to see if you can, with your eyes without the fingerprint powder, observe any shoe prints?
Yes, we use oblique lighting.
As you did that, or did you do that in this case?
Yes,
And as you did that in that area, did you observe any footprints that appeared to be made in blood or any blood patterns or anything like that in that area?
No.
At some point, well, let me back up. If you had seen a footprint in blood, well, how would you have gone about collecting that?
After swabbing a representative sample of the blood, we would have then enhanced that print with a chemical. There are a couple we use. Leucocrystal violet is one, or LCV. It stains the hemoglobin purple. Amino black's another one. It stains it black, works the same way. And then we would document that through photography.
Okay. And with respect to leucocrystal violet, again, is that
LCV.
LCV, let's use LCV.
You know what else
Is
I'm
that
curious about?
Does that preserve and enhance a footprint that's made in blood? Is that how that works?
It further enhances some of the blood that maybe isn't visually noticeable.
And does it alter or change that footprint at all?
No.
Now, with respect to footprints that are made just not in blood. So you talked about the fact that you look on a surface using light to see whether or not you can tell whether there was footprints. And you did this. With your visual, just your eye, were you able to see any footprints in that case?
Visually, I don't believe we saw anything.
And because you didn't see anything with your eye just using light, at that point, did you use fingerprint powder?
Yes.
And walk us through how you do that. How do you lay that in?
I'm going to be quiet because I can't remember.
The same way you would fingerprint
This
a
is the
vertical
house where
surface.
the prints were.
Just fingerprint powder on a brush. Typically on a floor, I like to use magnetic powder. It's just easier to clean up sometimes. But you just dust the floor, and as you start to see a print develop, you concentrate on that area and develop that print.
And did you do that in this kitchen area?
Yes, we did.
And as you did that in this kitchen area, did you see a print develop?
There were prints that were developed, yes.
And let me ask you this, as you're doing that with respect to this area, at this point, do you have any idea whether or not those prints, because they're not in blood, do you have any idea whether or not those prints are in any way, shape, or form linked to the murders?
No.
Are you just collecting those
Hey,
prints,
Castor,
again, out of
good
an abundance
morning.
of caution and
And good
collecting the
evening
evidence
to
of
you.
violence?
Yes.
Clearly, if you had found a print in blood, would that have led you to believe that that print in blood was probably more linked to your murders?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to put up what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit B197.
Okay.
State's Exhibit B197, again, I handed you a stack of pictures. The State's Exhibit B197 that's in that stack of pictures, is that up on the screen now?
I don't want to
Yes.
interrupt him
And
anymore,
can
but
you
I
tell
have
the jury what they're
questions.
looking at with respect to B197 and what all that is?
This is the linoleum kitchen floor that we use fingerprint powder to develop some footwear impressions.
And if you could point to the diagram, show us the orientation of that picture.
So this is in the kitchen. At the top of the picture, you can see the drawer at the bottom of the stove.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B198? Walk us through what we're seeing in State's Exhibit B198.
This is in the corner of the kitchen. You can see footwear impressions that are developed using fingerprint powder.
State's Exhibit B199. Walk us through that.
This is a close-up photo of that impression.
And State's Exhibit B200. What is that?
Just a closer photo to try and provide more detail.
Now, I believe I also handed you
Huh.
what was marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibits B201 through B210. I'm not going to put those up on the screen, but can you just tell the jury what those are?
Yes, these are further photographs of this and other impressions that were developed, photographed with a scale to show their size, and they were eventually collected.
With respect to documenting those imprints as they showed up with that fingerprint powder? Is it important, or do you go through a lot of documentation, take a lot of pictures so that eventually the lab or somebody at the lab can look at it and possibly use it for comparison purposes?
Yes.
And walk us through how you take these different pictures.
These photographs, especially if they're going to be used for comparison purposes, we tend to put it on a tripod. It needs to be perpendicular to the impression you're trying to take, so we're directly over top of it. And we use lighting from different angles to try and show, different detail in the print.
Eventually, do you know were the pictures that you took in this case sent to lab or used to either rule in or rule out shoes?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And again, with respect to the shoe prints that you looked at and photographed in this picture, again, ultimately, do you know whether or not it was determined whether or not these shoe prints were involved in the murder?
There was no indication that a shoe of that type was involved, no.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask my question.
As part of your collection of this type of evidence, did you also take a lift of
we
that shoe
know
print
that there
is
was
documented in that picture?
2
Yes, so in addition to
bloody shoe prints
photographing the
found.
print, and using
Okay.
the photograph
And
for
I
comparison if need be
think that
later,
they were found
We also
in
looked
Chris Roden
or attempt to lift
Senior's
them with
home.
what's called a
Maybe
gel
I'm
lift.
mistaken,
It's
because
simply
I'm
a
very
gel-like
curious
material on a
how
paper backing that we put
someone
down
was
on the
able to
impression.
step in
We usually leave it
blood
sit,
and then not track
for a few minutes
at
to
least
absorb
some of it
that
into
powder, and
another
then we
crime
peel it
scene.
up,
So
and
maybe
the
I
impression is
misunderstood, so I
down in
better
the
just
gel.
be quiet and
We
keep
preserve
listening.
that.
And eventually, does that go to the lab so that scientists or experts can, again, either rule in or rule out shoe prints?
It can, yes.
My handy what's been marked for identification purposes is State's Exhibit B322. Can you look at State's Exhibit B322 for us?
Yes. It has an evidence sticker number 13 containing gel lifts of developed footwear impressions from the floor from 4199 Union Hill Road with my initials on the seal.
Can you do me a favor? Can you open that up for us?
Sure.
You pull the item that's inside out. Can you tell us what that item is?
There are 3 gel lifts marked with my name and the scene information, labeled as FWI or footwear impression, numbers 1, 2, and 3. There's a rough diagram showing roughly where it was located in the room. And then this is the impression that was lifted.
Okay. And again, each of those impressions, do you recognize those as impressions that you lifted from that living room area as part of your work, in this case on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes.
Darren asked permission to publish this.
Okay.
All right, you may publish.
For the record, the one I just published for the jury was FWI number 3. I'm now running back through with the jury with FWI number 2. And finally, I'm going to show FWI number 1.
Well, if you fall asleep, catch chick, sweet dreams.
Agent Fortner, I'm going to again hand you the packaging marked for identification purposes, State Exhibit B322. Do you recognize, in addition to your markings, do you recognize markings that show that
Ooh,
actually
I know
did
who
end up
that
going to the
is.
lab?
Yes.
I might have to get over to the Twitters later, nonstop mom. Thanks, babe. All right, I'm going to mute, but I'll be in chat. So, y'all behave. Just kidding.
We walked
Don't
through.
behave.
the
Behave
living
however you're
room,
going to behave.
We walked through the kitchen. At some point, did you continue back to the far, and then on this diagram, I'll just call it the left side, the far left side of this residence and check the rooms back there?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can I get State's Exhibit B101? State's Exhibit B101, which I have not handed you yet. Handed you another stack of pictures. State's Exhibit B101. Can you tell the jury what's depicted in State's Exhibit B101? And again, use the diagram. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to walk the jury through that house with you.
Yes, this is a view from this area in the kitchen looking back towards the hallway of the bedroom area and the, I guess, laundry area.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Where is that at?
It is back in this location.
Okay. That hallway back there, ultimately, does that lead to a bedroom?
Yes.
If I, Andy Wilson, was up in this room right here doing something, would I be vulnerable to somebody who might be in that room coming out and getting me or impeding my ability to do whatever I was in there? Could somebody be in this room and come out of this room and get to me fairly easily without me knowing?
I suppose they could, yes.
The door, that door area, if somebody was posted up at that door, would somebody in that area be able to alert me or stop somebody from coming out of that bedroom?
Yes, they would have a much better chance of knowing that someone was in that bedroom or coming out of it.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B102? Can you tell us what we're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B102 and where that is in that trailer?
It's in that same location, just looking up a little farther into that bedroom.
B103?
This is the shelf above the washer and dryer.
Is that in that same general area?
Yes.
And then B104?
Is the top of the washer and dryer.
And again, as part of your documentation, is it standard for you from time to time, if there's clothes in a washer or dryer, to kind of document that area or condition of those clothes?
Yes.
State's Exhibit B127. Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
Inside the dryer, documenting the clothes that are in there.
And again, at this point, as you're documenting the scene, do you have any idea if clothes in the dryer are any way, shape, or form related to this case?
No.
Is it just something that you do out of abundance of caution?
Yes.
Can I get State's Exhibit B105, please? Can you tell the jury where that picture is taken?
Yes. In this location, looking right at the threshold to the bedroom, and you see the threshold of the bathroom as well.
What are you trying to depict there?
Just showing the items on the floor.
B106? Okay, so where are we at there and where?
Again, we're in this location now, looking back out toward the kitchen.
Okay, so let's actually use that picture. That's a good. Are we at the threshold of this bedroom door back here in this area?
Yes.
Looking back out this way, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, again, from that B106 that's up there, can you see all the way back to that bedroom where the bodies were found?
No.
And with respect to that door that I was talking about, that back door, again, if somebody was going to post up there, where's that door in relationship to that picture?
Just right here on the left.
And again, if somebody was there, would that block my access from getting to that room undetected?
Could, yes.
And I say that room, I'm talking the bedroom where the bodies are found.
It could, yes.
Can I get B107, please? What are we looking at there?
It's a photograph of the floor in front of the washer and dryer, some of the items there.
In addition to that little hallway area there by that rear bedroom or that far bedroom, did you also document that bathroom area that's on the diagram and that bedroom?
Yes.
I'm gonna hand you 2 stacks of pictures. First one right there, I believe is what, B108 on the top.
Correct.
Page exhibit B108. Tell the jury what they're looking at there, what area of that diagram is that picture taken?
This is looking into that bathroom from the kitchen hallway area.
And I handed you that stack B108 to B112. Mr. Junk, I'm not going to show those pictures, but B108 to B112, can you tell the jury what's depicted in all of those pictures?
Yes, just documenting all angles of that bathroom, looking in the sink where there was no apparent blood, looking in the bathtub, there was no apparent blood. There was a reddish substance on the wall that we tested. It was negative for the presence of blood.
With respect to the other items that were visible or anything in that room, did you find anything of evidentiary value at all in that bathroom?
No.
Didn't collect any evidence, correct?
Correct.
And then the other stack of pictures there, at some point, did you document and examine that bedroom that's over on the left side of that diagram
Yes.
for evidence? Can I get state exhibit B113?
Right,
And if you
Amelia?
could,
That's
tell
my
us what we're
thinking,
looking
because
at
that's a common
there
bruise.
and
We're
where
a
in
little
the
bu-
diagram that
Oh,
picture's taken.
excuse me.
So this would
Behind,
be
due to my
just
pausing,
at the
so I'm just
threshold
gonna
looking into the bedroom.
speed
Can
us
you give me
up so
state
we can be
exhibit
on time with the court.
B114? What are we looking at there?
Just panning to the left toward the other corner of the bedroom.
State exhibit B115? Where are we looking at there?
Just pan to the left again, down that wall.
And those 3 pictures there, B113, B114, and B115, does that give you the general panoramic view of how that room looked on that day?
Yes.
Again, was this an area that was fairly cluttered?
Yes, it was.
Did you have the opportunity as part of your work in that room to look around that room, to look in bags, to look in different areas to see if there was anything of evidentiary value in that room?
We did.
And with respect to that room, did you find anything of evidentiary value?
We did not find anything that we felt was evidentiary. I know subsequently, we did look at some cell phones. They were very old, not powered on. We didn't feel they were probative. However, they were subsequently collected and examined, and they showed to have nothing on them.
Okay. And again, those, where in the room were those cell phones?
They were in some totes and some of the clutter up in that area.
Did they appear, when you look at them and collected them, did they appear to be old or not currently in use?
Yes, they were very old models. Again, not powered. Some of them didn't have batteries.
I also, in that stack there, I believe I've handed you probably state exhibits B1, well, I handed you 113 through 126. We talked about B113, B114, B115. B116 through B126, I'm not going to show those, Mr. Young. B116 through B126, again, are those other pictures of the work that you did in that room?
Yes.
And do they truly and accurately depict the way that room looked on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes.
After documenting that area, or in addition to documenting that area, did you also work your way over to this side of that residence and document the appearance of that area for that residence and then collect any evidence associated with those areas?
Yes.
My handy what's been marked for identification purposes as state exhibits B128 and B129. Can you take a look at B128 and B129? Mr. Jump, can you give me State's Exhibit B128? Agent Fortner, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the jury with you as you work your way through that area of that residence. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at and what's depicted in State's Exhibit B128?
Yes, these photos are from the front door area and then maybe a step or two in, looking down this hallway towards the bedroom.
And then State's Exhibit B129?
Again, it's just that step closer looking down that hallway.
In State's Exhibit B129, the room all the way at the end, if you walk through the threshold of that door, what do you find?
It would be this main bedroom. There was subsequently another bedroom here and a bathroom. These are not to scale. This was actually bigger than the bathroom.
Okay, so that's a good point. You kind of tailed off there at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You talk about that bedroom and that bathroom on the diagram not being to scale.
Correct.
And
The
as you-
bedroom would have been larger than the bathroom.
Okay, and is that one of the areas where you can tell, again, these are for demonstrative purposes, not necessarily measuring purposes? Is that
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
As you did your work in that area, did you document that bedroom and check it for any evidence?
Yes.
I'm gonna hand you another stack of pictures. It's gonna start with State's Exhibit B130. Mr. John, can you give me State's Exhibit B130, please? Could you tell the jury what are they looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B130?
This is this middle bedroom, looking in the bedroom from the doorway.
Okay. And what is depicted, or what are you observing in that room?
This was the room with the open window. And also you see there's a tub with baby chicks in it.
And with respect to the way that tub looked, the condition of that light, again, is that truly and accurately depict the way you found it that day?
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B133? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit B133?
This is a photograph in that tub with the chicks.
And again, with respect to that light being on, was that the condition you found it in
Yes.
when you did your work? You didn't turn it on to take that picture, is that correct?
No, I did not.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B131, please? Show the jury where that picture is taken from and what you're depicting in that picture.
This is again from the doorway here, looking into the bedroom. You can see the clutter and the open window.
State's Exhibit B134, please. What are we looking at there?
Some of the clutter in that room also looks like the lid to that tub with some chicken wire on top of it.
And then State's Exhibit B135. You tell us what we're looking at there.
This is a photograph of that windowsill, the open window. There is a knife that is kind of stuck into the jamb there. There's also a can and a tub with feed just inside the window.
With respect to the condition of that window, how high it was raised, is that the way you found it on that day?
Yes.
And as you look in that picture, and again, that is, what is that? That's picture B135, correct?
Correct.
As you look at State's Exhibit B135, you testified about that air conditioner that appeared to have some grass on it out back. Can you see that air conditioner in that picture?
Yes, just outside the window.
And with respect to the I don't know if it's a crib, pack and play, with respect to the pack and play and the trash can and the food that was around that window, even though it was tight, was there still a space between those items in the window?
There was a small space, yes.
Okay. And when you initially viewed that picture, did you think it was unlikely that anybody had come through that window?
Yes, I felt it was less likely that someone came in without disturbing some of these items. However, it was not impossible.
So clearly, somebody could have come through that window, but based on the way that those items appeared, nothing was knocked over or disturbed or upside down. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you give me State's Exhibit B137, please? Can you tell us what we're looking at from that picture and where that picture is taken from?
It was in that room, looking back toward this area, just some of the items on the floor there.
State's Exhibit B138. What are we looking at in State's Exhibit B138?
Photographs in that closet, in that bedroom.
And with respect to and Mr. Junk, you don't have to show these, but B138, B139, and B140, what are depicted in those pictures?
Those are all three photographs in that closet showing very little other than a couple decorative things in there.
And again, those pictures truly and accurately depict the way that closet looked on that day.
Yes.
Can I go to State's Exhibit B141? With respect to that room, in the area of that room, can you tell the jury what we're looking at there?
Just a photograph of more of the clutter and items on the floor.
And do you remember where in the room that would have been?
I don't recall. It's hard to orient from that photograph.
At some point, after documenting, well, let me back you up. You documented all of these items in that room. Was there anything of evidentiary value that you collected in any of these bags or closets or anything like that for purposes of this investigation?
No.
And at some point, did you come out of that room and document, again, working further down the hallway toward that back bedroom?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you another stack of pictures. Mr. Junk, I'm going to start with State's Exhibit B195. Ultimately, as you work your way through that area of that residence, did you find different pieces of evidence that you collected?
Yes.
And did you mark that evidence as you found it with evidence placards?
Yes, I did.
Now, would you have documented all of this stuff before you marked the pictures with placards and numbers?
Yes.
In the picture there are placards and letters, or number placards and letter placards visible?
Yes.
Does that indicate to you that these would have been pictures taken later in the sequence?
Correct.
And could you tell the jury, what are they looking at, where that picture is taken from, and what we're looking towards?
Yes. So this is basically from around that bedroom door looking back towards this bedroom door. There's a number 7, which is a piece of paper with an apparent blood stain on it. And then area C, which is another stain of potential blood.
Eventually, did you check and document that bathroom as well?
Yes.
Okay, and can you explain or describe your observations of that bathroom, how that bathroom looked?
Again, cluttered. There was nothing found of any evidentiary value in there.
Did you photograph it? Would you photograph different areas of that as well?
Yes.
And did you collect anything, swab anything, take anything from that bathroom area?
No.
Okay. Eventually, again, did you make your way out of that bathroom?
No, the Wagners
And
were
in
not
that
as bright as
picture
they thought they were.
on
They didn't think they were
the
going to
screen,
get
can
caught
you point to where the
at all.
bathroom was located?
This would be the bathroom.
They was wrong.
So just outside that bathroom door in that little hallway there, eventually did you find the evidence that you documented?
Yes.
Okay. You've marked an item as number 7 there. Can you tell us what was item number 7?
Item number 7 is a piece of paper on the floor in the hallway with an apparent blood stain on it.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B196, please? Okay. What's depicted in State's Exhibit 196?
This is a photograph of that piece of paper with the stain marked as item number 7.
And did you collect that piece of paper in accordance with your training, your standard operating procedure there at BCI?
Yes.
I'm gonna hand you both. It's been marked for identification purposes. State Exhibit B316. State Exhibit B316. Can you take a look at that for me?
Marked as evidence number 7 containing paper with suspected blood from the floor from 4199 Union Hill Road. And my initials are on the side.
Can you do me a favor? Can you open that up for us? Can you pull the item out of that package? Do you recognize that item?
Yes, this appears to be the paper with the blood stain on it.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask the witness to publish this document since he's got the glove on.
No objection.
Can you just, you don't have to get up. Can you just hold it up and show? And can you point out where the blood stain is?
Blood stain up in this corner.
Is that the item that you collected that's depicted in the picture, State's Exhibit B196?
Yes, it is.
Can you put that back in the envelope? Did you, and you may have testified to this, but did you test that for the presumptive presence of blood?
Yes, I did.
And what were the results of that test?
They were positive?
And in addition to your markings, do you recognize markings that it went to the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, the parties would have another stipulation. The parties would agree and stipulate that the drop of blood on State's Exhibit 316, which is BCI item number 7, from the hallway of 4199 Union Hill Road, tested presumptively positive for the presence of blood. That item was sent to the lab for DNA testing, and the DNA in the blood was a mixture of Frankie Roden and Hannah Gilly.
Always Bessie Cakes. Somebody always spills the beans.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit B145? I asked you if you had documented that bathroom area. I'll throw up just one picture there. Again, State's Exhibit B145 that you have on the screen there. Can you tell the jury what that is, please?
This is a photograph in that bathroom.
Does that truly and accurately depict the area as it appeared on April 22nd, 2016?
Yes.
And again, anything of evidentiary value in that bathroom?
No, there wasn't.
I'm probably good to stream for another like 20 minutes or whenever they take
Your Honor,
their
I'm
first
about
break.
to move into that back bedroom with the bodies. This might be if we're going to take a morning break, this might be a decent spot to take the morning break
All right.
so that I can get into that area.
All right. I assume that's acceptable with the defense. We will recess until
And the reason I'm stopping here is because I have stuff to do, obviously, but also because they're going to be discussing the bodies, and so they're not going to. It's just going to be talking and not a lot of showing, which is fine. But it's just a good point to take a break, and this way, they are listening to me, Amelia Sparkles. I got the power. I do. I'm magic. Also, what was I going to say? Oh, because this way, while I'm doing what I need to be doing, I can listen in the background and take notes of stuff so I can do the time stamping. This time I'm writing them down instead of trying to remember them. That did not work so well last night. But I'm gonna listen in the background so I can be marking down for timestamps. And also, oh wow, KNS, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That was very sweet of you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support. But this way I can timestamp it, like actually write it down. But also I'll be listening for any, just to be able to sum it up for you guys and get to the parts where we want to review tonight. Yes. So, that's what we're going to do. This is where I leave you. I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate your support always. I find this case to be completely sad and fascinating at the same time. I've never, usually I'll watch a trial, but I won't like watch it this closely. I will skip witnesses or, I won't be interested in all of this testimony. I'm interested in every single thing that comes out. And so I want to thank you guys for being here. Again, thank you, KNS, for the super sticker. I really, really appreciate it. It was very, very sweet of you. And I will see you guys tonight at 9 Eastern for our wrap up. And we'll go over some more testimony, particularly what we have, what happens from now until the end of court today. And so you guys have a good, great rest of your Wednesday and stay safe out on these YouTube streets and in the real streets because it's dicey out there, y'all. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you again. I will see you all tonight. Mo, you have a great workout. All right. Bye, you guys.